"There she is," Dennis announced into the microphone, his voice smooth as butter. "The most beautiful woman in Houston, the future Mrs. Dennis." Everyone turned to look at her. Her mother was already crying. Her Auntie Ngozi was filming on her iPhone with the flash on even though it was 7 p.m. Dennis's mother was clutching her chest like she was watching the series finale of her favorite telenovela. Nneoma felt her eye twitch, the left one, the one that always twitched when she was about to do something her mother would call disrespectful and she would call honest. "Nneoma," Dennis continued, his voice dripping with practiced sincerity, "I know we've had our challenges. I know I've made mistakes." "Mistakes is such an interesting word choice," Nneoma interrupted, her voice cutting through the romantic atmosphere like a chainsaw through wedding cake. "Is that what we're calling sleeping with your dentist now? A mistake? Like you accidentally tripped and fell into her—" "Nneoma!" her mother hissed from the table. "Repeatedly, for 6 months, while telling me you were working late." The restaurant went silent. The band stopped playing mid-note. Someone dropped a fork and it clattered against a plate like a gunshot. Dennis's smile flickered. "Baby, we can discuss this privately." "Oh, now you want privacy. Interesting. Because you didn't want privacy when you planned this public ambush." "It's not an ambush," Dennis said, his voice hardening slightly. "It's a gesture, a romantic gesture." "A romantic gesture would be respecting the 17 times I've told you we're done. This is a hostage situation with better lighting." Her Auntie Chioma stood up. "Nneoma, you're making a scene." "I'm making a scene? He's the one with a microphone. He's trying to make amends. He's trying to trap me into saying yes because he knows I won't embarrass him in front of his mother." Dennis set down the microphone and Nneoma watched his expression shift from charming to calculating. "Nneoma, can we please talk about this like adults? Adults don't cheat with their dental hygienist." "It was one time. It was 6 months, Dennis. I have text messages. I have the hotel receipts. I have a screenshot of your Uber history that shows you going to her apartment every Thursday when you told me you had basketball practice. You went through my phone." Dennis looked genuinely offended, which would have been funny if it wasn't so infuriating. "You left it on my counter. The notifications did all the work." Dennis took a step toward her, his voice dropping to that tone he used when he was trying to be intimidating. "You're embarrassing yourself." "No, I'm embarrassing you. There's a difference." "Nneoma, sit down." It wasn't a request. No. Sit. Down. Make me. Her mother stood up, her face stricken. "Nneoma Marie Okoro, I did not raise you to be this disrespectful. You raised me to have standards, Mom. I'm just applying them." Dennis reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I was going to do this the right way, but since you want to make a scene—" He opened the box, revealing a diamond ring that probably cost more than Nneoma's car. "Nneoma Okoro, will you marry me?" The entire restaurant held its breath. Nneoma looked at the ring, at Dennis, at her mother's hopeful, tear-stained face, at the 20 people watching her with varying expressions of excitement and judgment, and she laughed. Not a polite laugh, not a nervous laugh, a full belly, throw your head back, absolutely losing it laugh that made several people shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Oh my God," she gasped between laughs. "Oh my God, you actually thought—" More laughter. "You actually thought this would work." Dennis's face went from confident to confused to angry in about 3 seconds. "What's so funny?" "Everything. This whole thing. The ambush, the microphone, the ring." She wiped. Tears from her eyes. "Dennis, I wouldn't marry you if you were the last man in Houston. Hell, I wouldn't marry you if you were the last man in Texas. Possibly the last man in the entire South." "You're going to regret this," Dennis said quietly. "The only thing I regret is not ending this sooner." Nneoma grabbed her clutch from the table. "Mom, I love you. Aunties, enjoy your dinner. Dennis—" She looked at him one last time. "Lose my number, and maybe invest in some therapy." She turned and walked toward the exit. Behind her, she could hear her mother crying, her aunties whispering furiously, and Dennis saying something about her being too independent for her own good. Good, she thought. Let them talk. She was halfway to the elevator when a voice behind her said, "Excuse me. Listen, if you've ever been cornered into doing something you absolutely didn't want to do just because family is watching, smash that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because this story is about what happens when a Nigerian woman finally says enough is enough, and what happens when a dangerously attractive Korean man decides that's exactly the kind of chaos he wants in his life. Your support keeps these stories coming, and trust me, you want to stay till the end to see what happens." Nneoma turned and found herself looking at a man who definitely hadn't been part of Dennis's ambush party. He was Korean, probably early 30s, wearing a black suit that looked like it cost more than the down payment on a house. His hair was perfectly styled, his face was the kind of handsome that made you forget what you were saying mid-sentence, and his eyes were dark and amused. "Yes?" Nneoma said, trying to keep her voice steady despite the adrenaline still pumping through her system. "I think you dropped this." He held out her phone. Nneoma looked at the phone in his hand. Same case as hers, same crack on the corner. She reached into her clutch. Her phone was still there. "That's not mine," she said slowly. The man smiled, and it transformed his entire face from intimidating to devastating. "I know, but you looked like you needed an excuse to keep walking instead of getting in that elevator." Nneoma blinked. "You were in the restaurant?" "I was having dinner, alone, at the bar." He gestured with the phone. "I heard everything." "So you decided to... what? Rescue me with a fake phone?" "I decided to give you an option. The elevator is right there if you want to leave. Or..." He gestured toward the restaurant's outdoor terrace. "You could have a drink with a stranger who thinks that was the most entertaining thing he's seen in months." Nneoma should have said no, should have thanked him politely, gotten in the elevator, and gone home to eat ice cream and question all her life choices. Instead, she said, "What kind of drink?" 20 minutes later, Nneoma was sitting on the terrace with a glass of wine that probably cost more than her monthly gym membership, looking out at the Houston skyline and wondering how her evening had taken such a bizarre turn. The man, who'd introduced himself as Park Jae-sung, sat across from her with a glass of whiskey, looking completely at ease. "So," Jae-sung said, his voice carrying a slight accent that somehow made everything he said sound more interesting. "Do you want to talk about it, or should we pretend we're strangers making small talk about the weather?" "The weather in Houston is consistently terrible, not much to discuss." "Fair point. And you are a stranger, so technically we would be strangers making small talk." "Also fair." Nneoma took a long sip of her wine. "This is insane. I don't even know you." "That's what makes it perfect. I have no agenda. I'm not going to take your ex's side or your mother's side. I'm just a guy who watched a woman handle an impossible situation with more grace than it deserved, and thought she deserved better than an elevator ride with people who clearly don't respect her boundaries. You think that was grace? I basically told off a room full of people. You told the truth. That takes courage. My mother would say it is disrespectful." "Your mother?" Jae-sung paused, seeming to reconsider his words. "Your mother is entitled to her opinion. That doesn't make it correct." Nneoma laughed despite herself. "That's a very diplomatic way of saying my mother is wrong." "I'm Korean. We're excellent at diplomatic phrasing. And yet you were very undiplomatic when you fake returned my phone. That was strategic intervention, not diplomacy. Is there a difference?" "Absolutely. Diplomacy would have been letting you handle it yourself. Strategic intervention was making sure you had a way out." They talked for an hour about Houston, about Seoul, about the differences between Nigerian and Korean family expectations. Jae-sung was easy to talk to in a way that felt almost dangerous, like he was actually listening instead of just waiting for his turn to speak. "So," Nneoma said, studying him over her wine glass, "what brings a Korean man to Houston? Business? Something like that? That's vague. I prefer mysterious. I prefer honest." Jae-sung's smile widened. "I import and export goods between South Korea and the United States, currently expanding operations in Texas." "What kind of goods?" "Electronics, automotive parts, medical supplies. Boring stuff, really." "Doesn't sound boring." "It is when you're explaining it at dinner parties. People's eyes glaze over by the time I get to supply chain optimization. I'm a marketing consultant. I can make supply chain optimization sound sexy." "That's a bold claim." "It's a professional skill." Jae-sung laughed, and Nneoma noticed he had a small scar through his left eyebrow that somehow made him more attractive instead of less, which seemed unfair. Her phone buzzed. Again. She glanced at the screen and grimaced. "Your mother?" Jae-sung asked. "My mother, my aunties, Dennis's mother, and what appears to be the entire church prayer chain." "Popular woman. Notorious woman, more like." Nneoma silenced her phone and dropped it into her clutch. "I should probably go, face the firing squad." "Do you want to go?" "Not particularly, but I also don't want my mother showing up at my apartment at midnight with my aunties and a pastor." "That's specific. You don't know Nigerian mothers. They travel in packs when they're disappointed." Jae-sung pulled a business card from his jacket and slid it across the table. Simple, elegant, embossed letters. "If you ever need another escape, call me." Nneoma picked up the card. "Do you make a habit of offering escapes to women in distress?" "Only the ones brave enough to laugh in the face of public proposals." "I wasn't laughing at the proposal. I was laughing at the audacity." "Even better." Nneoma tucked the card into her clutch and stood. "Thank you for the drink and the fake phone rescue." "Anytime." Jae-sung stood as well, and Nneoma realized he was taller than she'd thought. "Drive safe. And for what it's worth, he really didn't deserve you." "You don't know me well enough to make that assessment." "I know you well enough to know you don't laugh at people. You laugh at absurdity, and that situation was deeply absurd." Nneoma smiled despite herself. "Good night, Jae-sung." "Good night, Nneoma." She left the terrace feeling lighter than she'd felt in months, rode the elevator down to the parking garage, got in her car, and sat there for a moment just breathing. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You forgot to take the fake phone with you. I'll have to find another excuse next time. J.S." Nneoma stared at the text, then at the business card in her hand, and laughed. The next morning, Nneoma woke up to 23 missed calls and what appeared to be a novel's worth of text messages. She made herself coffee, the good stuff, imported from a place in Third Ward that roasted their own beans, and sat on her tiny balcony reading through them with detached amusement. Her mother, "You have humiliated this family. Dennis's mother will never speak to us again. How will I show my face at church?" Her Auntie Ngozi, "I don't know what's gotten into you, but this independence thing has gone too far. A good man is hard to find, and you just threw one away." Her Auntie Chioma, "Your father would be so disappointed in you." That last one stung more than Nneoma wanted to admit. Her father had died 4 years ago. Heart attack. Sudden. The kind that leaves families scrambling and mothers convinced the world is ending. He'd been her champion, the one who'd supported her decision to start her own consulting firm instead of taking a stable corporate job. The one who'd told her that her worth wasn't tied to having a husband. Nneoma deleted most of the messages without responding, but there was one she couldn't ignore, from her younger brother, Cheeky, who'd apparently witnessed the whole disaster. "Mom is planning an intervention. Sunday dinner at her place. She's already called the pastor. Just warning you." Nneoma groaned and typed back, "Thanks for the heads up. I'm not going." Cheek's response came immediately. "She's going to show up at your apartment." "Then I won't be home." "Where will you go?" "Good question." Nneoma looked at the business card sitting on her coffee table. Park Jae-sung, Import/Export Operations, and a phone number with a Houston area code. She picked up the card, turned it over in her hands, and made a decision that would change everything. She texted him, "This is Nneoma from last night. Any chance you're free this weekend?" The response came within 2 minutes. "Depends. Are you running from another public proposal, or is this a different kind of emergency?" "Different kind. My mother is planning what she's calling a family meeting, but what I'm calling an ambush 2.0. When?" "Sunday afternoon. But I really need to breathe and think." "I can make that happen. Pick you up Saturday morning. Bring comfortable shoes." "Where are we going?" "Do you trust me?" "I've known you for 3 hours total." "Then this will be an excellent trust-building exercise." Nneoma stared at her phone, her practical side screaming that this was insane, that she didn't know this man, that getting in a car with a stranger was exactly the kind of thing Dateline episodes were made about. But her practical side had also told her to stay with Dennis, to give him another chance, to consider her mother's feelings. And look where that had gotten her. She typed, "Okay, but if you're a serial killer, I'm going to be very disappointed." Noted. I'll try not to be a serial killer. Bad for business. What business? Import/export. Serial killing would really complicate the supply chain. Despite everything, Nneoma laughed. Saturday morning arrived with Houston humidity that felt like being wrapped in a wet blanket made of regret. Nneoma stood outside her apartment building at 9 a.m. sharp, wearing jeans, a simple black tank top, and sneakers, trying not to overthink the fact that she was about to spend the day with a man she'd met once. A sleek black SUV pulled up, not the kind of car regular people drove, but the kind that had bulletproof windows and cost more than her annual salary. Jae-sung got out, and Nneoma tried not to stare. He was wearing jeans and a white t-shirt, somehow looking better than any man had a right to look in something so simple. When he saw her, he smiled. "You came," he said. "Did you think I wouldn't?" "I thought you might come to your senses." "I left those back at the restaurant." Jae-sung laughed and opened the passenger door for her. "Get in. I promise I'm only moderately dangerous." "That's not as reassuring as you think it is." They drove out of Houston toward Galveston, the city giving way to flat Texas landscape and the occasional oil derrick. Jae-sung had good taste in music, R&B mixed with some K-pop she didn't recognize but found herself enjoying. "So," Nneoma said about 30 minutes into the drive, "are you going to tell me where we're going?" "Somewhere you can breathe." "That's mysterious." "I told you I was good at mysterious things." "You said you were good at diplomatic phrasing." "I'm multi-talented." They ended up at a private beach house in Galveston, tucked away from the main roads and hidden behind security gates that made Nneoma raise her eyebrows. "This is yours?" she asked as they pulled up to a modern glass and steel structure that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine. "It belongs to my company. I use it sometimes when I need to think or when I need to help. Beautiful Nigerian women escape their families for a day. How often does that second thing happen?" "You're the first. Feel honored." The house was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Gulf, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than Nneoma's car, a kitchen that looked like it had never been used. "Make yourself comfortable," Jae-sung said. "I'll get lunch started." "You cook?" "I'm Korean. Of course I cook. Also, I lived alone for 5 years. It was either learn to cook or survive on ramyeon." "Ramyeon?" "Korean instant noodles. Delicious, but not a long-term strategy." Nneoma watched as Jae-sung moved around the kitchen with the ease of someone who actually knew what he was doing. He pulled out ingredients: meat, vegetables, rice, something that looked like red pepper paste. "Are you making Korean food?" she asked. "I'm making bulgogi. It's beef marinated in—" "I know what bulgogi is. I lived in LA for 2 years. K-Town was my second home." "Then, you'll be able to tell if I'm doing it right." "No pressure." They cooked together, Or rather, Jae-sung cooked while Nneoma perched on the counter and provided commentary. He told her about growing up in Seoul, about the pressure to take over his father's business, about moving to the U.S. for college and never really going back. "Do you miss it?" Nneoma asked. "Seoul?" "Sometimes. Mostly I miss the food, and my grandmother. She makes kimchi that could win awards." "Could win or has won?" "Has won. Multiple. She has a shelf dedicated to kimchi competition trophies." "That's the most Korean thing I've ever heard." "Wait until I tell you about my mother's collection of therapeutic heating pads." Nneoma laughed, and it felt good. Easy. Like laughing with an old friend instead of a stranger she'd met less than 24 hours ago. They ate on the deck overlooking the beach. The bulgogi was perfect, sweet and savory, and exactly what Nneoma needed after the emotional chaos of the past week. "Okay," she said around a mouthful of rice. "This is really good, like unfairly good. My grandmother would be proud. Does she know you're in Texas making bulgogi for random women you met at restaurants?" "She knows I'm in Texas. The rest would probably give her a heart attack." "Because I'm not Korean." "Because I picked you up without a formal introduction from a matchmaker. My grandmother is very traditional." "And you're not?" Jae-sung was quiet for a moment. "I'm traditional where it matters. Family loyalty, respect, keeping your word. The rest..." He shrugged. "The rest is negotiable." They spent the afternoon on the beach. Jae-sung found a volleyball somewhere, and they played an increasingly ridiculous game that involved more laughing than actual volleyball. Nneoma couldn't remember the last time she'd had this much fun, especially with a man. Dennis had always been so focused on looking good, on being seen at the right places with the right people. He'd never just played. As the sun started to set, they sat on the deck with wine. Good wine, the kind Nneoma could never justify buying for herself, and watched the waves. "Thank you," Nneoma said quietly. "For what?" "For today. For letting me escape without asking a million questions about why I needed to. Everyone needs to escape sometimes. Even you. Especially me." "From what?" Jae-sung took a long sip of his wine. "From the weight of expectations. From family obligations that feel more like chains. From the person everyone expects me to be instead of the person I actually am." Nneoma recognized the heaviness in those words. Your father's business. My father's business. My uncle's opinions. My mother's hopes. My grandmother's prayers. Sometimes I feel like I'm holding up a building, and if I let go for even a second, everything will collapse. That sounds exhausting. It is. So why not walk away? Jae-sung smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Because in my family, you don't walk away. You're born into it, you work in it, and eventually you die in it. Walking away isn't an option. That's dark. That's reality. When Jae-sung drove her home later that night, they sat in the car outside her apartment building for a long moment. "Thank you," Nneoma said again, "for today. You don't have to thank me for basic human decency. Apparently I do because Dennis never showed me any. Dennis is an idiot." "Agreed." Jae-sung turned to face her. "Can I see you again? Not as an escape plan, as whatever this is." "I don't know what this is." "Neither do I, but I'd like to find out." Nneoma thought about all the reasons she should say no. They barely knew each other. He had family complications. She was still dealing with the fallout from Dennis. Her mother would lose her mind. "Okay," she said. "Okay? Okay, let's figure out what this is." Jae-sung smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. "Wednesday? There's a Korean BBQ place in Midtown that I've been meaning to try. You want to take me to a Korean BBQ? I want to feed you meat while you tell me stories about growing up Nigerian in Houston. That's very specific. I'm very interested." Nneoma laughed and got out of the car, but before she closed the door, she leaned back in. "Jae-sung? Yeah? If this turns out to be some elaborate serial killer plan, I'm going to be really mad." Noted. I'll make sure to be a disappointing serial killer at worst. That's still not reassuring. She closed the door and walked into her building, feeling lighter than she had in months. She had no idea what she was doing, but for the first time in years, she was doing it for herself, and that felt like everything. Sunday came whether Nneoma wanted it to or not. She woke up to 17 missed calls, new record, and a text from Chike that simply said, "Mom's here." She brought the pastor. "Save yourself." Nneoma looked at the text, looked at the business card on her nightstand, and made a decision. She wasn't going to hide, wasn't going to run. She was going to show up and set boundaries like the grown woman she was. She texted Chike back, "Tell her I'll be there in an hour, and that I'm bringing backup." What kind of backup? The confusing kind. She called Jae-sung. "Good morning," he answered, sounding like he'd been awake for hours. "I need a favor." "I'm listening." "Remember that family intervention I was avoiding? I'm not avoiding it anymore, but I need moral support." "You want me to meet your mother?" "I want you to sit in a room with my mother, 2 aunties, a pastor, and my brother, while they try to convince me to get back together with Dennis." There was a pause. Then, "What time should I pick you up?" Nneoma laughed, surprised. "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to." "What time?" 1 hour. And Jae-sung?" "Yeah." "Thank you." "You can thank me after we survive whatever this is about to be." 60 minutes later, Jae-sung pulled up outside Nneoma's apartment in a different car, a Mercedes sedan this time, still expensive but slightly less, "I'm definitely in the Mafia" than the SUV. He was wearing slacks and a button-down shirt, looking respectable and dangerous in equal measure. "Ready?" he asked as Nneoma got in. "Absolutely not. Let's go anyway." They drove to Missouri City, where Nneoma's mother lived in a modest house that somehow always smelled like jollof rice and disappointment. Nneoma's stomach churned as Jae-sung parked on the street. "Last chance to back out," she said. "I didn't back out of a business meeting with a cartel last year. I'm not backing out of Sunday dinner with your mother." That's either very brave or very stupid. Often the same thing. They walked up to the house together. The living room was full. Her mother, her 2 aunties, Pastor Okonkwo from the church, Chike looking like he wanted to be literally anywhere else, and Dennis. Of course Dennis was there. Everyone turned when they walked in. Her mother's mouth dropped open. Her auntie Ngozi actually gasped. Dennis's face went from smug to furious in about 2 seconds. "Mom," Nneoma said calmly, "everyone. This is Park Jae-sung. Jae-sung, this is my family. And Dennis, who is not my family despite everyone's best efforts." "It's a pleasure to meet you," Jae-sung said, bowing slightly in a gesture that was both respectful and somehow commanding. Pastor Okonkwo recovered first. "Please sit down. We were just about to begin our discussion." "Discussion," Nneoma muttered. "Is that what we're calling this?" They sat. Nneoma and Jae-sung on one couch. Everyone else arranged in a semicircle like this was an intervention episode of a reality show, which, Nneoma supposed, it kind of was. Her mother spoke first. "Nneoma, we're all here because we love you." "Mom, if this is love, I need to update my definition. And because we're worried about the decisions you're making." "You mean the decision not to marry a cheater?" Dennis leaned forward. "I made a mistake, Nneoma. One mistake. Are you really going to throw away what we have over one mistake?" "It was 6 months of mistakes, Dennis. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern." "Who is this?" Dennis gestured at Jae-sung like he was a piece of furniture. "Your rebound?" "Dennis," Jae-sung said calmly, "I'm going to give you one piece of advice. Stop talking." "Excuse me?" "You heard me. You're embarrassing yourself." Dennis stood up. "I don't know who you think you are." Someone who knows when to walk away from a woman who's made her choice very clear. "I'm not talking to you." "Then stop talking." Nneoma's auntie Ngozi jumped in. "Who is this man, Nneoma? Where did you meet him?" At the restaurant, during Dennis's public humiliation special. And you brought him here? To a family meeting? You brought Dennis to a family meeting. At least Jae-sung was invited. This is disrespectful, her mother said, her voice shaking. No, Mom, this is boundaries, something I should have set a long time ago. Pastor Okonkwo cleared his throat. Perhaps we should all take a moment to pray. With respect, Pastor, Nneoma interrupted, I don't think prayer is going to fix this. Dennis needs therapy. Mom needs to accept that I'm an adult, and everyone needs to understand that I'm not getting back together with a man who cheated on me with his dentist. She was a dental hygienist, Dennis muttered. Everyone turned to look at him. What? He said defensively. I'm just clarifying. Oh, well, that makes it so much better, Nneoma said. Thank you for that important distinction. Jae-sung made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. Her mother stood up, tears streaming down her face. I just want you to be happy, Nneoma, to be settled, to have a family. I know, Mom, but your version of happy looks like me being miserable with a man who doesn't respect me. That's not happiness. That's just occupied. And this man, her mother gestured at Jae-sung, you think he's going to make you happy? I don't know. We've known each other for 3 days, but I know he treats me better than Dennis ever did. I know he asked me what I wanted instead of telling me what I should want. And I know that even if this doesn't work out, I'd rather risk being alone than guarantee being miserable. The room went quiet. Finally, Chiki said, Can I say something? Everyone looked at him. Nneoma's right. Dennis is trash. No offense. Offense taken, Dennis muttered. And Mom, you need to let her live her life, even if that life includes... He looked at Jae-sung. What exactly do you do? Import and export, Jae-sung said smoothly. Right, even if it includes import-export guy. I like your brother, Jae-sung whispered to Nneoma. He's useful occasionally. Pastor, Okonkwo sighed. Nneoma, I understand you're hurt, but the Bible says... Pastor, with all due respect, the Bible also says that God hates divorce. Dennis and I weren't married. We were dating, and now we're not. That's it. That's the story. But Dennis is willing to make amends. Dennis is willing to do whatever it takes to avoid admitting he messed up. There's a difference. Dennis stood up again. You know what? Fine. If you want to throw away what we had for some random Asian guy you just met, that's your choice. But don't come crawling back when he breaks your heart. I won't, Nneoma said, because even if Jae-sung turns out to be the worst mistake of my life, at least he'll be my mistake, not one I made to keep you or Mom or anyone else happy. Dennis stormed out, literally stormed, slammed the door and everything. It was dramatic and a little bit funny, and Nneoma had to bite her lip to keep from laughing. Her mother sat down heavily. I don't understand you anymore. I know, Mom, but I need you to try. This man, she looked at Jae-sung, how long have you known my daughter? 3 days, Jae-sung said honestly, and you're already involved in her family drama? Apparently. Why? Jae-sung looked at Nneoma, then back at her mother. Because in 3 days your daughter has shown me more authenticity, courage, and self-respect than most people show in a lifetime, and I'd be an idiot to walk away from that just because it's complicated. The room went silent again. Then Nneoma's Auntie Kioma said, He's handsome. I'll give you that. Auntie, what? I have eyes. Despite everything, everyone laughed. Even Nneoma's mother cracked a small smile. Okay, her mother said finally. Okay, I don't understand this, and I'm not saying I approve, but I'll try to not actively disapprove. That's all I'm asking, Nneoma said. But if he hurts you, then I'll handle it, like an adult, like you raised me to be. Her? Mother nodded, wiping her eyes. You're very stubborn. I get it from you. That's not a compliment. Yes, it is. They stayed for another hour, ate jollof rice and plantains that Auntie Ngozi had brought. made awkward small talk about Jae-sung's business and Nneoma's consulting work. Pastor Okonkwo told a story about his own dating disasters that made everyone feel slightly better about the current situation. As they were leaving, Chiki pulled Nneoma aside. "Is he good to you?" he asked quietly. "I barely know him." "That's not what I asked." Nneoma looked at Jae-sung, who was politely listening to their mother explain the proper way to make egusi soup. "Yeah, he's good to me." "Then that's all that matters." In the car on the way back to Houston, Nneoma and Jae-sung sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she said, "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For dragging you into that chaos." "That wasn't chaos. That was a Nigerian family who loves you expressing that love in the most stressful way possible." "You're not wrong." "Also, your Auntie Chioma gave me her phone number, said I should call her if I need any advice about Nigerian women." Nneoma burst out laughing. "Oh my God." She seemed very serious about it. "She's serious about everything. Last year she gave me a 45-minute lecture about the proper way to season chicken." "Was she right?" "Completely. Auntie Chioma doesn't play about seasoning." They drove in comfortable silence for a while. Then Jae-sung said, "For what it's worth, you handled that really well." "I basically told off a pastor and made my mother cry." "You set boundaries. That's different." "My mother doesn't see it that way." "Your mother will. Give her time." Nneoma looked at him. "You're very calm about all of this." "All of what?" "Meeting my family after 3 days, sitting through an intervention, dealing with Dennis's tantrum." Jae-sung shrugged. "I've been in worse situations." "Like what?" "Like the time I had to negotiate with a cartel in Juarez while they held my business partner at gunpoint." Nneoma stared at him. "You're joking." "I wish I were." "What happened?" "I negotiated. He lived. We don't do business in Juarez anymore." "That's terrifying." "That's international trade." "No, that's a crime movie." "Sometimes the same thing." They pulled up outside Nneoma's apartment. Before she could get out, Jae-sung took her hand. "Nneoma," he said seriously, "I need to tell you something." "That sounds ominous." "It's important." He took a breath. "My business isn't entirely legal." Nneoma felt her stomach drop. "What do you mean?" "I mean my family's company operates in spaces where the law is flexible. We move goods between countries. Some of those goods go through proper customs channels. Some of them don't. Some of the money we handle is clean. Some of it isn't. And some of the people we work with would make Dennis look like a choir boy." "Are you telling me you're a criminal?" "I'm telling you I'm a businessman who operates outside traditional legal frameworks, which, depending on who you ask, either makes me a criminal or an entrepreneur." Nneoma pulled her hand back. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because you deserve honesty, and because if you want to walk away, now's the time to do it, before this gets more complicated." "More complicated than meeting my family at an intervention?" "Much more complicated." Nneoma sat back in her seat, processing. "What exactly are we talking about here? Drugs? Weapons? Money laundering, mostly. Helping people move assets between countries when they can't do it legally. Facilitating transactions that benefit all parties but make customs agents nervous. That's still illegal. Yes. But you're telling me you don't hurt people?" "I'm telling you that's not what we do. We're not gangsters. We're not violent. We're just creative problem solvers." "That's a hell of a euphemism." "It's the truth." Nneoma looked at him, really looked at him, at this man who'd shown up when she needed him, who'd been honest even when honesty was hard, who'd sat through her family drama without flinching. "I should walk away," she said. "Probably." "This is insane." "Definitely." "I barely know you." "True." "And you're telling me you're basically a white-collar criminal." "Gray-collar." "But yes." Nneoma laughed. She couldn't help it. The absurdity of everything, and now this. It was all too much. "What's funny?" Jae-sung asked. 3 days ago, my biggest problem was avoiding my ex-boyfriend. Now I'm sitting in a car with a man who just admitted he launders money for a living. When you put it that way, it does sound dramatic. It is dramatic. This is the most dramatic my life has ever been. And I'm not walking away. Jae-sung's eyebrows rose. You're not? No, because Dennis lied to me for 6 months and called it love. You've known me for 3 days, and you're giving me the truth, even though it might scare me off. That's worth something. Is that worth risking everything? I don't know yet, but I'd like to find out. Jae-sung looked at her like she'd just solved a puzzle he'd been working on for years. I think you're brave. Ask me again in a month when federal agents are knocking on my door. That's not going to happen. You can't promise that. No, Jae-sung agreed, but I can promise I'll be honest with you, always, even when the truth is complicated. That's a low bar. It's higher than most people clear. Nneoma couldn't argue with that. She got out of the car, then leaned back in. Jae-sung? Yeah? Wednesday, Korean BBQ, don't be late. He smiled. I wouldn't dream of it. Nneoma walked into her building feeling like she'd just made either the best or worst decision of her life. Time would tell which one. But for now, she was choosing herself, choosing honesty, choosing to see where this went even though it was messy and complicated and probably a terrible idea. And that felt exactly right. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of late-night dinners, long phone conversations, and Nneoma slowly realizing that Jae-sung was becoming a permanent fixture in her life. They fell into an easy rhythm. Wednesday dinners at various Korean restaurants, Saturday mornings at the farmers market in Montrose, Sunday evenings cooking together at her apartment. Jae-sung was easy to be around in a way that Dennis never had been. He didn't need her to be anything other than herself. He laughed at her jokes. He asked about her work and actually remembered what clients she was dealing with. He never once checked his phone during dinner. And most importantly, he'd been absolutely honest about his business. Almost too honest. He'd shown her documents, explained operations, answered every question she had, even when the answers made him look bad. Why are you telling me all this? Nneoma had asked one evening while they cooked bibimbap at her apartment. Because I don't want secrets between us, Jae-sung had said, not looking up from the vegetables he was chopping. Secrets are what killed my cousin's relationship. Secrets are what drove her to... He stopped, took a breath. I won't do that to someone I care about. You care about me? Obviously. I let you eat the last piece of kimchi. That's basically a proposal in Korean culture. That's not true. It's a little bit true. They'd laughed, and Nneoma had felt something shift in her chest, something warm and terrifying and wonderful. On a Tuesday evening 3 weeks after the family intervention, Dennis showed up at Nneoma's apartment building. Nneoma was coming home from a client meeting, exhausted and thinking about ordering Thai food and watching Netflix, when she saw him. He was leaning against a car in the parking garage, clearly waiting for her. Dennis, she said, keeping her distance. What are you doing here? We need to talk. No, we don't. We have nothing to talk about. I've been giving you space. Time to get this thing with that Korean guy out of your system. But it's been 3 weeks, Nneoma. That's enough. That's enough? Nneoma laughed in disbelief. Dennis, you don't get to decide when I'm done being upset about you cheating on me. I told you that was a mistake. That lasted 6 months. And I've apologized multiple times. What more do you want from me? Nothing. I want absolutely nothing from you. I want you to leave me alone. Dennis pushed off the car and took a step toward her. Not threatening, but not friendly either. Is this because of him? That Korean guy? His name is Jae-sung. And no, this is because of you. He's using you, Nneoma. Can't you see that? The only person who ever used me is standing in front of me right now. I did some research on him, Dennis continued like she hadn't spoken. On his company, his family. You know what they're involved in? Nneoma felt her heart rate pick up. Whatever you think you know, they're criminals. His family runs one of the biggest money laundering operations between South Korea and the U.S. They work with cartels, with corrupt politicians, with anyone who'll pay them. And you know this. How? I have friends. People who look into these things. You mean you hired a private investigator to stalk my boyfriend? I'm trying to protect you. I don't need your protection. Yes, you do, because you're being naive. This guy is dangerous, Nneoma. He's going to get you hurt or arrested or worse. The only person who's ever hurt me is you, Dennis. And I'm done talking about this. Nneoma turned to walk away, and Dennis grabbed her arm. Not hard, but firm enough to stop her. Let go, she said quietly. Not until you listen. Let go of me now. Nneoma. A car door slammed. Footsteps, and then a voice that made Nneoma's stomach drop and soar at the same time. She said, let go. Dennis's hand fell away immediately. They both turned to see Jae-sung standing 10 feet away, his expression completely neutral, which somehow made him more intimidating. This is a private conversation, Dennis said, trying to sound confident and failing. Nothing is private when you're grabbing a woman's arm in a parking garage. I wasn't grabbing. I saw you. Let me be very clear about something. Jae-sung walked closer, and Dennis actually took a step back. Nneoma has told you to leave her alone, multiple times, in multiple ways. If you contact her again, if you show up at her apartment again, if you so much as look in her direction, you and I are going to have a very different kind of conversation. Do you understand? Are you threatening me? I'm informing you of the consequences. I could call the police. You could, and then you'd have to explain why you were harassing your ex-girlfriend. How do you think that would go? Dennis looked between Jae-sung and Nneoma, his face going through several emotions: anger, fear, humiliation. Finally, he said, You're going to regret this, Nneoma. The only thing I regret is not ending this sooner. Dennis stalked to his car and drove off, tires squealing like he was in a Fast and Furious movie. Nneoma waited until he was gone before letting out the breath she'd been holding. How did you know I was here? I didn't. I was coming to surprise you with dinner. Jae-sung held up a bag from her favorite Thai place. But then I saw him, and he stopped. Did he hurt you? No, he just grabbed my arm. Show me. Nneoma held out her arm. There were faint red marks where Dennis's fingers had been. Jae-sung's expression went very still, very cold. I'm going to kill him. No, you're not. I'm absolutely going to kill him. Jae-sung, nobody touches you, nobody makes you uncomfortable, and nobody leaves marks. Despite the seriousness of the situation, Nneoma felt warmth spread through her chest. You're being dramatic. I'm being protective. It's the same thing. It's not. Jae-sung pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her like he could shield her from everything bad in the world. I'm serious, Nneoma. If he comes near you again, you'll what? Launder money at him? Jae-sung pulled back to look at her, surprised. Then he laughed. Did you just make a joke about my illegal business activities? Too soon? No, it's perfect. You're perfect. He kissed her then, right there in the parking garage, and Nneoma felt everything else fade away. When they finally pulled apart, Jae-sung said, Let's go upstairs, eat Thai food, watch something terrible on Netflix. That sounds perfect. They rode the elevator up in comfortable silence, Jae-sung still holding her close like he was afraid she'd disappear. In her apartment, they ate pad thai straight from the containers and watched a cooking show that neither of them paid attention to. Jae-sung kept looking at her arm, at the marks that were already starting to fade. I need to tell you something, he said finally. That sounds ominous. It's not. Or maybe it is. I don't know anymore. He turned to face her fully. I need you to understand what staying with me means. Dennis knows about my business now. That makes you a target. A target for what? For anyone who wants to get to me. Competitors, law enforcement, people who think hurting you will give them leverage. Nneoma felt a chill. Are you trying to scare me? I'm trying to give you all the information so you can make a real choice. The choice to stay or go. Yes. Nneoma was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Dennis is right about one thing. This is dangerous. Your world is dangerous. Yes, but here's the thing. Dennis was dangerous too, just in a different way. He was dangerous to my self-esteem, to my boundaries, to my ability to trust my own judgment. That's not the same. No, but it's not that different either. Every relationship has risks. With you, the risks are external. Law enforcement, competitors, whatever. With Dennis, the risks were internal. Emotional manipulation, gaslighting, death by 1,000 small disrespects. So you're saying, I'm saying I choose the external risks. Because at least with you, I know what I'm dealing with. You've been honest about everything. You've never lied to make yourself look better. And you've never made me feel small. Jae-sung looked at her like she'd just handed him something precious. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. He kissed her again, slower this time, like they had all the time in the world. They spent the rest of the evening tangled together on her couch, talking about nothing and everything. It was only later, when Jae-sung was asleep and Nneoma was lying awake staring at the ceiling, that she let herself think about what staying with him really meant. Danger. Complications. A relationship that could end with her in a courtroom or worse, but also honesty. Respect. A man who treated her like an equal instead of a problem to solve. She looked at Jae-sung sleeping beside her, his face peaceful in a way it never was when he was awake, and made her choice. Again. She'd keep making it every day until she either stopped wanting to or the universe intervened. But for now, for tonight, she was exactly where she wanted to be. And that was enough. The thing about choosing danger is that eventually, danger shows up. And it showed up for Nneoma on a Thursday afternoon 2 weeks later when she was working from home, deep into a marketing proposal, and someone knocked on her door. Not a normal knock, a cop knock. The kind that said, "Open up, this is serious." Nneoma looked through the peephole and her stomach dropped. 2 people in suits, FBI badges clearly visible on their belts. She opened the door but left the chain on. "Can I help you?" The woman, mid-40s, blonde, looked like she didn't smile often, held up her badge. "Agent Morrison, FBI. This is Agent Chen. We need to ask you some questions about Park Jae-sung." Nneoma's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "I don't answer questions without a lawyer present." "We're not investigating you, Ms. Okoro. We just want to talk about your boyfriend." "Then you definitely need to talk to my lawyer, not me." Agent Chen, an Asian man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, said, "We can do this here or at the office. Your choice." "Neither. I'll have my lawyer contact you." "Ms. Okoro." "That's my answer. If you want to talk to me, go through my attorney." She started to close the door and Agent Morrison put her foot in it. "You should know that Park Jae-sung is under investigation for money laundering, racketeering, and conspiracy to commit fraud. If you're helping him, you're looking at federal charges." "I'm not helping him do anything except eat Thai food and watch cooking shows. Now remove your foot before I call building security." Agent Morrison smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Have your lawyer call us, but sooner rather than later. These things have a way of getting complicated." They left, and Nneoma closed the door with shaking hands. She immediately called Jae-sung. "FBI just showed up at my apartment," she said as soon as he answered. Silence. Then, "What did you tell them?" "Nothing. I said I wouldn't talk without a lawyer." "Good, that's good." "Jae-sung, they said you're under investigation." "I know. I've known for 3 months." Nneoma felt like she'd been punched. "You've known for 3 months?" "I didn't want to worry you." "You didn't want to?" She laughed, slightly hysterical. "Jae-sung, the FBI just showed up at my door. I think I deserved a heads up." "You're right. I'm sorry. I should have told you." "What do they have on you?" "Not enough to arrest me, but enough to make things uncomfortable." "How uncomfortable?" The kind where I might need to leave the country uncomfortable. Nneoma sat down heavily on her couch. You're planning to run? I'm planning to have options. There's a difference. Not much of one. Nneoma, were you going to tell me? Or were you just going to disappear one day and leave me wondering? I would never do that. Then what's the plan? Jae-sung was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. Figure it out faster, because I just had the FBI at my door and I need to know what I'm dealing with. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He was there in 15, looking stressed and exhausted in a way Nneoma had never seen before. He pulled her into a hug the moment she opened the door. I'm sorry, he said into her hair. I'm so sorry. Stop apologizing and start explaining. They sat on her couch and Jae-sung told her everything. About the investigation that had started 6 months ago. About the informant in his organization who'd been feeding information to the FBI. About the money they were trying to trace and the connections they were trying to prove. How bad is it? Nneoma asked when he finished. Bad enough that I'm looking at 15 years if they can make their case stick. But my lawyers think they can't. The evidence is circumstantial. The informant is unreliable. And most of our operations are technically legal. Technically legal. We're very good at paperwork. That's not reassuring. It's the truth. Nneoma stood up and paced her small living room. Okay. So the FBI is investigating you. They might arrest you. They might not. What do? We keep living our lives. We don't talk to them without lawyers, and we prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. That's a terrible plan. It's the only plan I have. Nneoma stopped pacing and looked at him. If you run, if you leave the country, what happens to us? Jae-sung stood up and walked over to her. I won't run unless I absolutely have to, and if I have to, I'll ask you to come with me. You want me to flee the country with you? I want you to make whatever choice feels right for you, but I need you to know that I'm not planning to go anywhere without telling you first. That's the lowest possible bar. I'm aware. Despite everything, Nneoma smiled. You're a disaster. I'm your disaster. Unfortunately. He kissed her, and Nneoma let herself get lost in it for a moment. Let herself forget about FBI agents and investigations and the fact that her life had become a crime drama. When they pulled apart, she said, I'm not leaving Houston. I understand. But I'm also not leaving you, so you're going to have to figure out how to make this work. Jae-sung looked at her like she'd just handed him the sun. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. They spent the rest of the day planning. Jae-sung called his lawyers. Nneoma called hers, a woman named Sharon who specialized in white-collar crime and had immediately said, Don't talk to the FBI without me present, when Nneoma explained the situation. That evening, exhausted and stressed, they ordered pizza and tried to pretend everything was normal. So, Nneoma said, picking pepperoni off her slice, on a scale of 1 to 10, how illegal are your activities? Jae-sung choked on his pizza. What? I want to know. Like, are we talking parking ticket illegal or cartel illegal? We're talking complicated, illegal. That's not a number. 6, maybe 7 on a bad day. And murder? Is murder on the table? No, we're not. We don't hurt people, Nneoma. That's a line we don't cross. But money laundering is fine? Money laundering is a victimless crime. That's what all money launderers say. Are you judging me? A little bit. Jae-sung set down his pizza. Do you want me to stop? Stop what? The business, the illegal parts. I can walk away. Nneoma looked at him in surprise. You'd do that? For you, yes. But it's your family business. You're more important than my family business. Nneoma felt tears prick her eyes. Don't say things like that. Why not? Because it makes me want to kiss you, and we're in the middle of a serious conversation. Kissing is very serious. Jae-sung, I mean it, Nneoma. If you want me to walk away from all of it, I will. I'll find a legitimate job. I'll work for someone else. I'll do whatever it takes. And your family? We'll learn to deal with it. Nneoma thought about what he was offering. A clean life. A safe life. A life where FBI agents didn't show up at her door. She also thought about what it would cost him. His identity. His purpose. His connection to the family he'd been trying to protect. Don't walk away, she said finally. What? Don't walk away from your business, just be smarter about it. Be more careful, maybe slightly more legal. Jae-sung stared at her. You're telling me to keep laundering money? I'm telling you not to sacrifice who you are just to make me comfortable. That's what my mother wanted me to do with Dennis, sacrifice myself to keep the peace. I won't ask you to do the same. This is different. It's not. You're asking if you should change everything about yourself to stay with me, and I'm saying no, stay yourself, just the slightly less likely to get arrested version. Jae-sung laughed, and it was the sound of relief. You're absolutely insane. I'm dating a money launderer. Sanity left the building weeks ago. They finished their pizza and fell asleep on the couch watching late-night TV. The investigation dragged on for 2 months. 2 months of lawyers and meetings and Nneoma constantly looking over her shoulder. 2 months of Jae-sung being stressed and distant and trying to protect her from the worst of it. And then, on a random Tuesday, it ended. The FBI dropped their case. Insufficient evidence, unreliable informant, and according to Jae-sung's lawyers, a judge who didn't think the prosecution had done their homework. Jae-sung called Nneoma from his lawyer's office. It's over. Over? They're closing the investigation? Nneoma sat down on her office floor and cried. Relief tears, stress tears, joy tears, all of it at once. That evening, they celebrated at a Korean BBQ place in Midtown. They grilled meat and drank soju and laughed like they hadn't laughed in weeks. So, Nneoma said, slightly tipsy from the soju, now what? Now what? Now that you're not actively being investigated by the FBI, what's next? Jae-sung was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I've been thinking about that. And I think I want to go legitimate. Not completely. Some of our operations are too valuable. But mostly. Enough that I can sleep at night. Because of me? Because of us. Because I want a future where we're not constantly worried about federal investigations. That's very mature of you. I'm very mature. You literally just tried to eat an entire piece of meat in one bite and choked. That was strategic testing of my gag reflex. Nneoma laughed so hard she almost fell out of her chair. That's the worst excuse I've ever heard. But it made you laugh. Fair point. They ate until they couldn't move, then walked through Midtown holding hands like teenagers. It felt normal. Beautifully. Perfectly normal. Nneoma, Jae-sung said as they walked past the art galleries and boutiques. Yeah? I love you. Nneoma stopped walking. What? I love you. I've been wanting to say it for weeks, but the timing was always wrong. And then I thought, there's never going to be perfect timing, so I'm just saying it now. I love you. Nneoma felt her throat tighten. You're very direct. Is that a bad thing? No, it's perfect. She pulled him. Close. I love you too, even though you're a reformed money launderer with questionable life choices. Reformed is a strong word. I prefer transitioning. You're ridiculous. You love me. Unfortunately. He kissed her right there on the street, and Nneoma felt like everything had finally clicked into place. Not perfectly. Their lives were still complicated. Her mother still called weekly to express concern. Dennis was apparently telling everyone who'd listen that Nneoma had lost her mind. But close enough. 6 months later, Jae-sung proposed. Not in a restaurant full of people, not with her family watching. Just the two of them at the Galveston beach house, watching the sunset, with no one around but a security guard discreetly stationed at the property entrance. Nneoma Okoro, Jae-sung said, getting down on one knee in the sand. Will you marry me? Nneoma looked at the ring, a simple diamond that caught the evening light, and at the man holding it. This man, who'd shown up when she needed an escape, who'd been honest even when honesty was complicated, who'd chosen her over everything else. "Yes," she said. "Obviously, yes." Jae-sung slipped the ring on her finger, and Nneoma pulled him up into a kiss that tasted like salt air and joy and everything she'd been too scared to want a year ago. They got married 4 months later, small ceremony at a venue in Houston. Nneoma's family, her mother, Cheek, her aunties, who'd finally stopped predicting doom. Jae-sung's brother flew in from Seoul. Dennis wasn't there. He'd moved to Atlanta and, according to mutual friends, was dating his new dentist. Nneoma hoped he'd learned something, but mostly, she just didn't think about him anymore. At the reception, Nneoma's mother pulled her aside. "Your father would be so proud," she said, tears streaming down her face. "You think so? I know so. You chose yourself. You chose love. You chose a man who treats you the way you deserve." She paused. "I'm sorry it took me so long to see that." "You're seeing it now. That's what matters." They hugged, and Nneoma felt something release in her chest that she'd been carrying for years. That night, standing on the venue's balcony with Jae-sung's arms around her, watching their families mingle and laugh together, Nneoma thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, the one who'd stood in a restaurant bathroom texting her mother for permission to leave. That woman felt like a stranger now. "What are you thinking?" Jae-sung asked, his voice soft against her ear. "That I almost chose safe over real, that I almost married Dennis just to keep everyone else happy." "But you didn't." "No, I didn't." "Regrets?" Nneoma turned in his arms, looking up at her husband's face. "Not even one." They kissed as the Houston skyline glittered behind them, and Nneoma thought about choices, about the dangerous ones and the safe ones and the ones that changed everything. She'd chosen danger, chosen honesty, chosen a man who operated in gray areas but treated her with complete clarity, and she'd choose him again, every single day, for the rest of her life. So if you're out there wondering if you should choose the safe option or the real one, here's what I'll tell you. Choose real. Choose honesty. Choose the person who sees you and chooses you back, complications and all. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is play it safe. If this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button right now. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment. When did you finally choose yourself? Thank you for being here. And remember, the bravest thing you can do is tell the truth. Even when it's messy. Even when it's hard. Especially then.